In this Python screencast, we're going to take a look at selection, which we know means using if statements, and we're going to have a look at nested if statements, which is if statements inside an if statement. Okay, so as this example, let's type in a question and say name equals input. Please enter your name, like so. That gives the user an opportunity to enter in their name. Now, this is where we can start using if statements. So what we can say is if, notice it's gone orange, that will highlight that it's spelt correctly if you misspell if name equals, there's two equals there, and we'll say Jeremy, colon, right, and what this means is we're saying if the name that they've entered, so if the content of the variable name is Jeremy, and double equals means if name is exactly the same as that. So you use a double equals when you are comparing this variable to something the other side. It's a single equals if you are assigning the variable the value. So at this point, name is empty, and we are assigning and putting into the variable whatever the user says to that. And it's a double equals if we're now comparing that to this. We're not actually assigning the variable now, it's already been assigned with the single equals there. So we're saying if name is exactly the same as Jeremy, colon, that means then the colon, press enter, and we've got this indentation. That's important. If you back arrow there and don't use the indentation, it will break the program. So we need to leave that there. So if name equals Jeremy, then we will say print, excellent name, like that. What we can then say is, so if it's Jeremy, print that, else, right, that's important. You'll notice that the else has now gone back to the original margin. So the else lines up with the if. That is important. Right? If you were to have left it here and wrote else there, that would now not work. So there's a little bit of white spacing that's important here. So else, colon, meaning otherwise, print shame your name. Oops, your name isn't Jeremy. Oops, there we go. So finally, enter the name. We know how to do that now and put it in the variable called name. If the variable called name matches that exactly as it is there, then print excellent name. Otherwise, or else, then do that. So in this statement, the code kind of goes one there, down, back, across, like that. So if we F5 and OK that, let's make sure it works. So enter your name, Jeremy, excellent name. We should make sure that it's working and run it with something else. Otherwise, we don't know. That could have been just coincidence. So let's put something else in. Peter. Shame your name isn't Jeremy. Okay, so there's one issue with that. If we run it again and run Jeremy, this time it says it's a shame your name isn't Jeremy. And the reason for that is I spelt Jeremy that time with a lowercase j. But my if statement here specifically checking if name is exactly the same as this, and that's got an uppercase J. So you can actually use some more logical operators. This time we're going to make use of and, or, and not, and so on like that. So what you could say now is if name equals Jeremy, or name equals Jeremy, like that. So now we've said if name is that, or if name is that. I haven't had to say if twice, but we have had to specify this twice. So let's try that now. So let's put it in with a lowercase j, like so. Now there is a much better way of doing that using string handling, but we'll look at that in a different screencast. That is a basic example of an if statement, but there's only two possible options here. So if it's Jeremy, then we're going to say this. That's option 1. Otherwise, say that, which is option 2. To extend it and have multiple options, we can use the Elif, which means otherwise if. For example, let's expand this and give it more than 2 options. Okay, so I am now going to come back and say Elif. Okay, it's gone orange again to confirm that that is the correct way of writing it, the correct syntax. So Elif name equals, I don't know, let's say Chris. Or name equals Chris with a lowercase, just in case. like that, we're going to say print I actually like the name Chris. So what we've done now is said if name is Jeremy or Jeremy, then print excellent name. Otherwise, if, which Elif stands for, else if Elif name is Chris or name is lowercase Chris, then print that. And finally, otherwise, if it isn't that, and if it isn't that, then what else? The final one we need to do is put something there. You can actually have as many elifs as you want in an if statement. So you can say if elif name equals Chloe, print hi Chloe, and so on. And I could have as many elifs as I want. Let's just test it. Let's put in Chris. Chris, I actually like the name Chris. We could test it with Chloe as well. Straight up, there you go. That window's moved again for some reason. Let's put in Chloe. Hi Chloe. The main thing of importance there is that you've got the orange if keywords line up and the indents line up. So what it's going to do lines up like that, and the orange ones line up there. If there's any indentation that's incorrect, it will not work. Let's just have a look at nested ifs. Right, that's essentially where you have a whole if statement block inside another if statement block. So let's say you're making one of those computer games where you've got certain choices and you have to go a certain path. So we've said input. Let's say in fact choice equals input. Which door would you take? Okay, so we're going to say if choice is 1, print you opened door 1. Right, let's just do elif choice equals 2. Print you open door 2. And finally, let's do else, keep it simple, print you surely have to pick a door. Okay, so let's say that I open door 1 and I'm going to take this route. Python will now not run any of this code now. All right, it will only stay inside this segment from underneath here. So I could say you've opened door 1, print that was a good choice. All right, then if there's nothing else underneath this line, it won't run either of these because choice wasn't 2 or neither of them, and then it will jump back down to here. So let's just prove it. Print prove it. So to run it, F5. Okay, that's my first bit. Right, so which door would you take? 1. Okay, you opened door 1. That was a good choice. Prove it. So what it's done is it said, I've said 1 here, so it's printed that line, it's printed that line, and now there's nowhere else to go because the next line is actually if choice was 2 or something else. So it's jumped down to here and will continue down here. You can actually put if statements inside here now. So let's say I've opened door 1 and now I need to pick up one of 2 items. So choice 2 is going to be input which item will you take? But we're only being asked which item to take because we picked door 1 in the first place. So let's again say if choice 2 equals the dagger, print violence solves nothing. Let's say if choice 2 equals diplomacy, print wise choice, and finally else, print just pick an item. Right, so let's scroll down. This if statement that starts with that if there, this whole if statement there is inside this initial if statement there. Right, so you'll notice once again this if, elif, and else line up together, and what's going to happen? Line up down here. So this code still goes down, left, right, left, and so on like that. And it will only run this if statement if this first part of this if statement is selected. So if I run choice 1, it will then run that. But if I run choice 2, it will come down to here and run that only. So let's test it. F5, OK. Oh, made a mistake. And that is, of course, because I didn't put double equals in. Equals equals, because I am comparing. That was careless. So enter your name, Jeremy. Which door will you take? Let's say take door 1. Okay, which item will I take? Let's say dagger. Violence solves nothing. And then it says prove it again because it's finished from there. There's nowhere else to go, so it will come back down and continue the rest of the program. Let's run it one last time. And I'm going to pick door 1, and this time diplomacy. Wise choice. Just to confirm that it won't run any of that nested if statement. If I don't pick door 1, there you go, it didn't even ask the question. So that is an example of how you can put an if statement in an if statement, which is called nested ifs. And of course, you can actually have nested ifs, inside ifs, inside ifs, inside ifs, and so on. I hope that's of use.